Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being with me on this journey. I am Diana Popa, business coach, and today my special guest is Tere Zacher. Tere? I think I forgot.
No, you said it perfectly. That was good.
Tere is a life and mindset coach who helps people become the best version of themselves for the past 25 years. She started her own journey when she was a swimmer, and she was a world champion. Even though she was on top of the world, at the same time, she was battling bulimia and an abusive relationship. She pursued grad school in psychology with specialization in performance, turned her life around, and she has been in a healthy relationship for 18 years and has a beautiful 16 years old daughter. She switched to running and became an Olympian at the age of 44, an achievement that has allowed her to inspire others to pursue their dreams regardless of their age, life circumstances, or obstacles they are facing. Tere's life is dedicated to help others to live a healthy and happy life and become the best version of themselves. Welcome, Tere. Thank you so much for being with me. I think I am having trouble pronouncing your name.
No, you're doing it perfectly. No, thank you for having me. I'm very, very excited to be here.
Tell us more about your story and Olympian at the age of 44 and also a world champion in swimming. This is very, very impressive.
Thank you. Well, I had, I've always believed that whatever you set your mind into, if you really are willing to put the work into getting there, because it's, you can go anywhere. And I always tell people you should dream high, because whatever you believe, you can achieve. And it's true. I'm an example of that. I am not special. I don't have special abilities or skills. I just work really hard for what I want, right? But most people don't realize that you have to put the work in order to get there. That's the part that they get lost. But yeah, I started swimming when I was 24. I had a coach that told me that I was not made as a swimmer. He told me that I was never going to make it. And so I switched, because I learned, of course, I cried a lot. And then I thought, wait a minute, who's this guy to tell me what I can and cannot do? Like, no one can tell me what I can do. I have to decide that, right? And yes, maybe I don't have the ability, but at least I have to try. And so I went to another coach. We had the same goal. Let's see what happens and let's work for it. And so, it worked well. I became a world champion and I ended up swimming really well. But let me tell you, the first coach was right. Physically, I'm not built as a swimmer. I don't feel the water. I don't have the buoyancy that other people have. But I never thought about it. I just thought this is what I want, and I worked hard for it, right? And there's also, a random thing that it's called luck, because I won by 100th of a second. To actually, the girl that came second was from Germany. I think they're from Germany too. So, that there's that little thing, but that really helped me to realize that what you set your mind into, if you believe that it will happen and you're willing to wait for it, and while you're waiting, to hustle and to work towards that and overcome, more obstacles, but more than the internal obstacles that we have, then things can happen. And so then many years later, after I had my daughter, I stopped swimming and I started running, and I always loved running. It's like my happy place. And one day I thought, well, maybe I should give this thing a try. And I started running. It went well. My former coach told me that I have the ability, but I was old. He was like, Tere, you have the ability, but you're old. So I don't think that you're going to make it to, that level. And I'm like, oh, I know this. Someone had told me this before. So I just said, well, thank you very much. I think we need to part ways. I wish you well, but if you don't believe that I cannot be with you, because what the people that you surround yourself with is very, very important. It's not that you want people saying, oh, you're awesome, right? But you want to be with people that if you say, I'm going to go for this, they tell you, you know what? Yes, and I'll be here with you. If not, why do you have people there that are going to be telling you you can't? And so I started training. My husband is a swim coach. I asked him at the time if he would supervise my workouts. And, we had our fair share of injuries and disappointments, and because life is always like this, right? You're not always going up. So would run well and had an injury, then run well, then didn't run well. But in the end, it all came together and I was able to qualify it at 44. And I was extremely happy, not so much because for me, like when I swam, it was a lot about my ego. I'm great, I'm good, right? With this, it was more about it really, the sky is the limit for everybody, because they tell us if you are this age, you cannot do this, or it's harder for you. If you are short, you shouldn't be doing this. If you are, your complexion is this, you're good for mathematics, but you're not good for science, whatever it is, right? So, and we believe these things. So for me, it was very important to be able to do this just so that I can maybe, I don't want to say inspire, because I don't think that I'm an inspiration and anyone can do it, but show other people that you really can do whatever you set your mind to, into regardless of what age you're at.
This is absolutely inspiring, Tere, and that I don't think that everyone is doing it. Maybe everyone could do it, but I don't think they are doing it. And you found that courage and that place in your heart to believe in yourself. And I know that this is very, very difficult for people, exactly for the reasons you mentioned, that we are believing everything that others are telling us, and we put all these limits and blockages. And how did you manage to actually maintain that mindset throughout your journey? Because you mentioned that you had ups and downs, and I know that when you go down, you are thinking maybe that person was right, maybe I should give up. How did you manage to maintain it?
So one thing that helped me a lot was when I was a swimmer, I would be training really, really well. Whenever my coach would take out the stopwatch, he would notice that I would tense a lot. And he was a brilliant man, because he said, you need to go see a psychologist. And I'm like, I'm not crazy, because this is the first thing you think, right? Like what would you think, man? And he's like, no, like there's something that is in your head. And so I went and I started seeing a psychologist, and then I realized that it was not even related to swimming. It was related to everything that I have been through my life, right? And now I'm putting it into swimming. And so I started working with him, and then, he taught me a lot of the skills, and it piqued my interest into the role that the mind plays in everything we do. And so I did, work with him while I was swimming, and he was a huge part of why I was able to just being focused, take the disappointments as stepping stones instead of, oh my gosh, this, it's bad. And then while I went to grad school for psychology, and I think that all of this has helped me a lot. And I'm going to tell you, every time that I talk to someone, number one, we all struggle, all of us. There's some people that don't, but I have yet to meet them. Most of us struggle with something, and in one way or another. So when I talk to other people, it's refreshing to see, oh, I'm not alone in this. Like, this is not a journey that I have been walking by myself. It's also a reminder, right? But what helped me on those times was just the skills that I learned. And also, I've always been working with someone else, because even if you are the person that coaches someone, you still need to talk to someone to get your stuff, in order, whatever it is. I read a lot of books, I listen to a lot of podcasts like you, right? And all of these things help a lot, and have helped a lot. And the most important thing was just to remember why you started and what you want. And so really learning to listen to your inner voice, the real voice that tells you, this is who I am and this is what I want. And I think we can, even when there's a lot of voices telling you the opposite. So, those are skills that you learn. And again, even now, I tell people, right, this is what I do for a living. I'm still running, and it's not like every day I go out and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm awesome, and I believe in myself. No, there are runs that I'm like, oh my gosh, it's really bad. And I'm like, Terry, remember, like, I have to use this on a daily basis. That's the difference, that when you learn them, once you learn them, it's not that the thoughts are going to go away. It's just that now you know how to get out of there before they become this huge thing.
I fully agree with you. Thank you so much, Tere, for sharing your experience, but also your life lessons. I would like to ask you, how did this growth mindset that you have impacted all the other areas of your life, relationship, business, financial, emotional?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think I love my life and I'm a really happy person. That doesn't mean that I'm happy all the time, but I'm a very happy person, right? And I think about the person that I was 20 years ago, and I don't recognize that person. And I don't ever want to be in that situation either. And you mentioned it, it's this growth mindset, right? You start realizing what you really deserve. You deserve happiness. All of us deserve happiness. And it's going to sound weird, but having a happy life is not that hard. It's just that we need to get out of our way, right? And really start realizing that the people that come to your life, like I was in an abusive relationship before, a gazillion years ago. And of course, the first thing that I had to do was not to say, he did this to me. He was, well, yeah, but he's going to live with himself. I am going to live with myself the rest of my life. So the person that needs to grow is me, so that I am not allowing certain patterns to repeat in my life. Otherwise, I'm going to have the same relationship with someone else. And so I really had to learn in everything that I've learned through sports, I applied to my life. And so with my husband, was a phenomenal man. So that's the very, very first thing. How do you recognize someone that is good for you, and that you're going to be a good match? Because that's the important thing. I tell my daughter, you may think that you're in love, but love is not necessarily the thing that is going to sustain your relationship forever, right? It's are you willing to grow in the same direction? Is he someone who's independent, who's growing, who's like you are, right? And he's going to support you. Are you going to support him? Blah, blah, blah. But all of these things that I've learned, right, have helped me. Just my relationship has ups and downs because it's life, right? Business has ups and downs. Everything has ups and downs. And so I've been able to put all these lessons that I learned into that and say, okay, right now this is a rough patch, but it's not the end of the tunnel. How are we going to get out of this? And it's like when you're training and it's not going your way, like, you're not just going to quit, right?
Yes.
So
absolutely. Thank you so much, Tere. You are really inspiring. Although you said that you don't feel like you are someone who is inspiring people, actually, this is what you are doing through your story. And the fact that you are walking the talk, and this is what I admire the most. I would like to ask you, what is one advice that you would give to other coaches? Because I know that many of them really dream to inspire other people and to impact millions of lives. What would you advise them, because you are already doing it?
Thank you. For me, the most important thing is you have to be happy first. And I like to think that I am not a selfish person, because I really like to give, right? My time, my whatever knowledge I have, etc. But I have to think of myself first. If I am not happy, if I am not okay, if I am not, stable, I cannot give these things to anybody else. And so as a life coach, it's very important that you take care of your life too. And as you say, that you walk the walk, not just to talk the talk, right? Like you have to really try to live a fulfilled life, and also being honest about you, because I share with people, and probably I share more than I should, right? But I share with people like, oh yeah, this morning I was with my husband and he said this, and I just got mad, because I do, right? And I'm not sharing this as a matter of saying, well, it's like, but then I realize I'm not mad at him, I'm mad at myself, because whatever, right? Like, I mean, it's always like that. And just being honest with these things also help the other people to connect with you, and for them to understand that, for them to see that you understand what they are going through. We have to remember that we're just guides, right? We are not perfect. We are not gurus. We don't have the truth. We don't. And our work is to help other people find what makes them happy. That's the other thing. I think it comes with age, right? When I was younger, I thought the way that I live, the way that I do things, this is the way, because that's what works for me. But that doesn't mean that that's going to work for you. You have a different culture, a different background, different lifestyle. And so we always have to think about the other person and where they are coming from, and sharing your experiences help, but also remembering that they have to find what works for them, whether it is what you think it's best or not, right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Tere. Thank you for sharing this with me and with our audience. And I would even say that you are a role model of not giving up. What would you advise those who are actually thinking of giving up, or maybe already gave up to something they were really dreaming about?
So I'm going to tell you that I agree with. I do not give up, because if something is important to me, then it doesn't matter if the result is going to be what you expect. Results are never under your control. But the happiness is not in the result, it's in the trying and in the keep going and in the, seeing what happens. The only advice that I can give people is, if something makes you happy, or if you dream of something, that it's going to be for you and you really want, just keep going for it. Not because you are going to get it, but because the satisfaction is in the trying. And I've always lived my life thinking, I much rather say I tried and it didn't happen, than saying, what if I would have done that? I think that for me, hell, the equivalent of hell would be being on my dying, bed and saying, oh, I should have done that. I would have, what if? I'd much rather say, well, I did that and it went really bad, but I did it. So
you're very brave.
We don't do that, what we do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tere. I don't know if there is any advice that you would give to people who are listening to us to really chase their dreams, to have a vision and to live their passion. If there is anything else you are applying in your life that you would like to mention.
Yes. So actually, that's a very good question. I have a 16-year-old daughter, and I see a lot of people that are teenagers or even older people. And one of the things that I notice is that we have been getting into this is what I should be doing with my life. This is what I need to be doing. This is how I need to look. This is, like all these things that people keep telling you that that's how it's supposed to be, versus what makes you happy. And my daughter, for example, she is, I'm going to go to college in a year. And she was telling me, I don't know where I should go to college. The counselor is telling me that this is a good school for me. And I just said, well, you don't need to find out right now. What you need to do, and this is the advice that I give to people, is find what sets your soul on fire. It doesn't matter if it's something that people tell you there's money there, there's no money there, because there's money everywhere and there's no money everywhere, right? You may meet someone who's a TikToker that are making millions of dollars, right? And then you have someone who has all these degrees that are not making. I'm not saying that school is bad, of course not. I love school. I'm just saying you have to be in the profession that really sets your soul afire, because the amount, how do they say, the amount that we spend for something is the time that we exchange for it. So if I'm doing something because it gives me a lot of money, but I'm not happy, I'm really just wasting my life. And so find what is it that is your passion. How can you find this? What are the activities that you can do that take your focus, right, and your attention, and you can spend there hours and hours and hours without thinking about it. And then all of a sudden you go, oh my gosh, it's been 3 hours and I've been doing this. That will give you an idea. What are the things that you say, well, I would do this even if they don't pay me? Of course, I need the money because I need to pay the mortgage and this and that, but I would do this even if they don't pay me. So when you find this kind of things, right, that's where your passion is. And that's kind of the path that you should follow. And really, when you start following what sets your soul on fire, happiness just becomes part of you, or it's easier to be happy. And then somehow everything else falls into place, because you're doing it for the right reasons. And so I don't think that I am a very wealthy person, because I don't think that wealth comes in money. Now, how much money I make, I can tell you, my bank account doesn't have a ton of money, but I live a really good life. And I'm very happy, and I wouldn't change this for anything. If someone offers me a job somewhere where I have to be there, 9 hours a day, but 9 hours a day, but I'm going to be making a ton of money, but I have to exchange a lot of the freedom and things that give me passion. Oh, I don't think I could do that. you know.
That's very
Nothing
inspirational.
provides my happiness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, especially for the young generations, exactly what you mentioned, that we are in this framework that we have to have a job. And I was recently talking to another person who had 20 years of experience in the corporate world. I have 10, and we were both thinking about the freedom part, that once you leave your job, you really are free to really live the life that you want to live. And I really believe that nowadays we are not in this framework. But most importantly, you mentioned something that we really need to be passionate about what we are doing, even if we are not paid, for example, that we feel really that fire inside. How can we discover this actually? How can we really feel that this is it?
Well, as I said before, right? Like if you think that when you were little, there were things that you would like to do, right? And one of the things that I love doing with people is just remembering your own voice, like just really, like, you can write what are all the things that you would like to do but you're not doing, right? Why are you not doing them? And so when you write down, like, I'm not doing that because there's not this, because there's no job security, because what's society going to say, whatever, then you can ask yourself, are all of these things, did I come up with them, or did someone else give them to me? And it's the same with us, right? Like what you think of yourself. So if we think, I am not good for this, I'm not good for that. I always wanted to be a singer, but I'm not good for singing, for example, right? Which, by the way, is one of the things that I always say. And now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, I have to explore that. And so then say, well, who told me I'm not good for singing, right? And is there some truth on that? And then could I find, maybe it's true, maybe I don't sing well, but if singing is something that I really, for example, right, that I really want to do, and that is there something around that area that could, maybe I'm not the singer, but could I be a producer? Could I be a composer? Could I be, could I work for someone who sings? And so that at least I'm surrounded by these things that make me happy. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but just finding, like, really, it's just finding what are the things that I really, what would I do if I have magic dust and I know that I cannot fail? And this question seems very easy to answer. It's very hard for a lot of people. I ask people, what would you do? Like, for example, I had this swimmer that came to me once and I said, if I have magic dust and I say, you tell me what you want to achieve, and I give it to you, you cannot fail. Just tell me what you want to do. And he said, maybe qualify for nationals. I'm like, really? That's all you want to achieve? Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? But he's like, and I go, I have magic dust. Like, you're gonna get whatever you want. He goes, well, maybe being in the final. And I said, well, what about going to Olympic Games? What about winning in Olympic Games? It's like, well, that's a long shot. So here's my thing, right? I'm telling you, you cannot fail, and you can still see past that, past your limitations. And we have to remember that these limitations are not ours, and limits are there so that we can push them and break them and keep expanding, right? And so start by doing this. What would I do if I cannot fail? And if you notice that it's hard for you to say, well, I would be a dancer, but without the but, right? Like what would you do? And so that's one of the things that you can start by doing, and then just finding what are the things that set your soul on fire, as I said, and then really say, well, what can I do right now to get closer to that? And most people have it really hard because we're so tied up to, but my job security, but my this, but my that, right? I'm not saying drop everything and go pursue your dream like that, because if you have a family and you have to be responsible, but how can I take some steps so that I can either transition into that, or at least do something around that that's a complement to what I'm doing right now, so that I also have that passion in that thing that makes me happy. And eventually maybe you will go towards that direction and leave less of this, but at least you have to start, and you have to find out what is it, right? And really start doing it. I have a friend who loved running, and she had 2 kids, and her husband worked too. She would wake up at 2:30 in the morning and run she put the baby monitor outside of her house and ran around her block. She trained for a marathon like this. She ended up qualifying for Olympic trials. So I'm not saying that everybody should wake up at 2:30. I'm just saying, if, she started doing that, and then she became sponsored, and then eventually she was able to quit her other job and focus on running. And so I'm not saying that happens for everybody, but she could have said, oh, that's it for me. But, running made her happy. So 2:30 in the morning around the block, and she was doing it. Yeah, I know. No. Oh, I'm telling you, every time that I'm like, oh, I have to run, I'm like, just wake me up at 2:30.
That's very inspiring. Thank you so much, Tere, for being here with me and for sharing all of these stories. I am inspired, and I am sure that our audience is also inspired, because we can build our life. And this is the message I am always putting behind my brand, is that we have the ability to design our tomorrow. We can do it. Thank you so much for being an example for us. And I would like to close our interview today by asking you, who are you serving and how can people contact you?
Well, anyone that wants to have a better life, and, if we personality we match, because as I tell people, I think I'm great, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to match with everybody or everybody's going to like me, and that's okay. But, I really, anyone that would like to just turn their life around, or that has some stuff that they want to overcome, I'm more than happy to be here for them. A lot of athletes come to me for, because there's that connection, but I don't only see athletes. I actually like to see people that are, everything comes to life, right? And the way that they can find me, it's, they can always send me a message to either my email that I will give you if you want, so that you can put it there. It's complicated how to pronounce it, @hotmail.com, or they can find me on Facebook as Tere Zacher, or on Instagram. I'm there. I think I'm even on Twitter. So I'll give you all my handlers if you want. And I have a blog too, actually. It's insightfulrunner.blog. And I think all my contact info is there. So, that's more about running, but they can find me there too.
Thank you so much, Tere. Thank you for being with me on this journey, and thank you for dedicating your time to inspire us and for being here in this show. Thank you once again.
Thank you. No, I'm super, literally, I'm super honored to be here. I'm very, very grateful that, I found you and that we're here, and I hope that everybody follows your podcast and your blog, because it's very inspiring too. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And for those of you listening to us, stay connected, because there is so much more to come.